Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
And we welcome you to this Wednesday edition of the show, all across America and Canada, and wherever else you may be watching on our YouTube channel, the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Thank you for being with us. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Very busy show today. So much so that we actually are going to have some bonus content available over on our YouTube channel. So make sure to go and check that out. We will be joined by our friend Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety. Sam Yarnell will be part of that conversation as well. That comes up in 10 minutes, talking all things NFL, the coaching firings, wild card weekend, all of it with Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety, Denver sports media personality, will join us. Also, Kurt Helin is here, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Lots of NBA talk to get into with him, what's going on with the Trae Young situation. Odds and ends, Damon Williams Jr., the situation with him at Washington. Sam and I will get into that. If you haven't heard about it yet, you'll want to stay tuned for that as well. But we start things out as we always do on this Wednesday edition of the show. Time for the big story. And the big story today is John Harbaugh being let go by the Baltimore Ravens after 18 years with that organization. 18 successful years with that organization. The only head coach that Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the team, has ever known. A Super Bowl winner, a coach of the year, 12 playoff appearances, 4 AFC championship games, most road playoff wins by a head coach. The list goes on and on and on. 180 and 113 in his regular season career. This is a guy that has known nothing but success. And now, for the first time as a head coach in this league, he's finding out what it's like to be on the unemployment line and to be the hot candidate. In this coaching cycle. He's going to be the guy that everybody wants to make a play for. But I wanted to break this down from a number of different angles to talk about. And we run through his resume and we know how great he is. I don't think this is about John Harbaugh having done a bad job. It's not his fault Mark Andrews couldn't catch a ball down near the goal line last year. It's not his fault that Tyler Loop shanked a 44 or 45-yard field goal. It is his fault that he didn't try to get a few yards closer. I've already gone into that. But the overall good that John Harbaugh has done for the organization goes without saying. And these partings are never smooth. They're never easy. But this is about as close to as smooth a ending as you're going to get between a guy that's been with an organization for 18 years and that organization. It's never easy. But he's getting released into a really wild coaching cycle with a lot of interesting vacancies. But I want to talk about this from a couple of angles. What does this mean for the Ravens going forward? What does it mean for Lamar Jackson's future with the team? The Ravens have 4 options when it comes to Lamar Jackson at this point. They could keep his 2026 cap number the same, go with the status quo. They can give him a contract extension. They could trade him. I know he has a no trade clause. I'm sure there's one team he's willing to go to. They reside in South Beach. They could also restructure his contract. There's a lot of discussion about what all of this means vis-a-vis his relationship, that being John Harbaugh, with Lamar Jackson and whether he had any play in this. I just think eventually the relationship gets old. And you know what? A lot of married couples stay together for the sake of the kids. A lot of married couples stay together because divorce is messy and divorce is more expensive than staying married. In this case, you don't have to do that. You can actually have a divorce and everybody can go on their merry way and be happy. I think John Harbaugh is ultimately going to be happy. I really do. And I think the Ravens will eventually be better for this as well. We see a lot of teams that wait to tear off the Band-Aid. It isn't like the Ravens waited 5 or 6 years or went, 2 or 3 years or 4 years longer than they should have with John Harbaugh. They all realized this was the time to make this move. The two sides get together, and they decide to let John Harbaugh go. I think it was done in as classy a way as possible. Now, go back to Harbaugh. He's 63 years old, this John Harbaugh. 63 years old. Still seems to be in good shape, but he's hardly a spring chicken. So where does he go next? Are we talking about a rebuild here? Are we talking about somebody that wants to go and take something that's broken, but have a lot more say in how it gets rebuilt and try to make one more run as the head coach of that type of team? I look at Sean Payton as an example. The Sean Payton situation, when he went to Denver, Denver was a mess. Remember, they went through that run of different quarterbacks. They couldn't get anybody. He comes in, he has Russell Wilson for a year. That's a train wreck. Russell Wilson goes elsewhere. They draft Bo Nix, and we've seen what has happened there. A few years after Sean Payton got there, and after initially thinking, oh, God, this Sean Payton experience in Denver's going to be a disaster, the team is not playing this week. You know why? They have a bye. That's how good the Denver Broncos have been this season. Whether you think that's a combination of Sean Payton and Vance Joseph, which our friend Nick Ferguson always likes to talk about, that's on you. But the reality is, in just a few years, in the latter stages of his career, Sean Payton has built a winner there. Maybe John Harbaugh wants to do that. Then there are the options that are not known to us. Yes, there are the openings like the Giants and the Falcons and the Tennessee Titans and Arizona and Cleveland. Yeah, there's all these openings that are out there. But then there's the openings that we don't yet know about. Because when this story got reported yesterday, and Adam Schefter at ESPN did a terrific job on it, there was the conversation of what exactly was going on here with teams, and there are teams in the plural that have decided to express an interest in Sean Payton. At least two teams that already have head coaches reportedly expressed an interest in talking to John Harbaugh. And that's just so far. So there could be a coach in this postseason right now, or a coach not in this postseason, that hasn't been fired yet, that still might get fired if John Harbaugh says, I want to go coach that team. I don't know how favorably that kind of thing would be looked upon by the NFL community, but if there's somebody that John Harbaugh wants to go coach, that job may be available as well. That's the big story. We'll expand upon it with Nick Ferguson and Sam Yarnell next. Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of SportsWrap. Good to have you all with us. You heard what I had to say in the big story regarding John Harbaugh. Let's see what these guys have to say. Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety, Denver sports media personality. Sam Yarnell, of course, always here. It's like the Capital One guy. He just sleeps on the couch inside the bank. All right, guys, your reaction to the John Harbaugh news. Go. I've already said what I have to say, so I'm more interested to hear what you have to say. Go ahead, Nick.
Sam, no, I'm going to give it to Sam first.
Oh, look at that.
Right.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. What an honor. I appreciate this high honor, Nick Ferguson. And I'll even allude to something that you and I spoke about in the proverbial green room before the show, because yesterday on this very show, Jason and I had a little bit of a discussion about the Baltimore Ravens, in which I postulated, or maybe it was a couple of days ago, I can't remember, but I postulated that it was the last time we'd see Lamar Jackson in a Ravens uniform. Because I didn't think this was going to happen, but I think it became pretty clear and obvious to people in the Baltimore Ravens organization that there was a decision that had to be made. You were either going to ride it out with Lamar Jackson or you were going to ride it out with John Harbaugh. And they chose the two-time MVP over the one-time Super Bowl champ. That, to me, is what this discussion or this decision came down to from a Ravens organizational standpoint. Nick, what did you make of a guy who we may think is the hottest coach in this cycle now?
It is crazy that John Harbaugh is the hottest coach after being fired. Just think, not in any other industry, That would never happen. You got fired in one post, but someone else, 7 other teams are like, oh man, we got to hire that guy. But I'll say this to John Harbaugh's credit. 18 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens, there are not too many coaches or organizations that can say that. And right now, it's on the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I tell you, there's another team out there wish they could say it, but they'll never be able to say it, and that's the Cleveland Browns. But as it pertains to the Baltimore Ravens, they had to make a choice, and the choice was clear and obvious. John Harbaugh on one hand, and then you had Lamar Jackson. Let me see. That's really easy because guess what? You can't find quarterbacks in the NFL or quarterbacks that could do what Lamar can do. You can find another Harbaugh. They come a dime a dozen, as we see every single year during the hiring cycle. And we'll just have to wait to see if this was a great decision by the Baltimore Ravens and Steve Bisciotti. But the one thing we know, who's coming in? Who's following Harbaugh? That's 18 years.
Why?
That's
According to you, it doesn't matter who follows him because you could find 1 million of them, you just told me.
Well, you can find 1 million.
I think you guys are disrespecting John Harbaugh.
No. This is not disrespectful. Not disrespectful in any way because the Baltimore Ravens already told you. The NFL tells us every freaking year, right? When the draft comes out, who are we talking about? Quarterbacks. That's the only team player we're talking about. Quarterbacks, there's wide receivers, offensive linemen, they're running backs, but everything has been made about the quarterback. So the quarterback has been propped up on this pedestal, right? And
you sound bitter. You sound bitter. You sound bitter about it.
You're damn right I do. Right? Because quarterbacks don't win games by themselves, right? What do we hear every single year in the Super Bowl? It's the quarterback that's doing the Disney commercial, right? Now, there was one year where the quarterback didn't do the Disney commercial. That's when Cam Newton went from Superman to Clark Kent when the Broncos defense put him in his place, right? And then Von Miller was the only defensive guy that said, well, I'm going to Disney World. And that's because the league has propped quarterbacks up on this pedestal. They don't win damn games by themselves. They don't. But the Ravens feel as though they made the right choice with their quarterback. So they're going to have to bring in the next coach who'll be able to deal with their quarterback. And hopefully that guy goes on an 18-year run, but I doubt it.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to be very challenging because now you've got to find somebody that embraces Lamar Jackson as he isn't going to try to change him. I think that becomes a challenge here. And look, they've got to make decisions on Lamar. I mean, everybody just assumes this means Lamar Jackson is staying. Maybe it doesn't. I mean, there's 3, as I pointed out in the big story, there's 4 options here that the Ravens have when it comes to Lamar Jackson and how they treat this situation. They could keep him at his current cap number, go with the status quo. They can give him a contract extension. They could trade him. He has a no trade clause. Or they could restructure the contract. I mean, there's a lot of different ways this Lamar thing could still go, guys.
Hey, it's going to be a restructure. It's not what we're going to expand your deal. And basically what they can say, okay, Lamar, what we'll do is we'll take whatever years on your contract, we'll front load it, and we'll turn it into an early signing bonus. How about that? That now frees up money in the back end for us to go out and make the team better. Isn't that what you wanted? I mean, that's why we fired Harbaugh. He was here 18 years. He gave us 18 years of hard work, playoffs, and Super Bowls, right? So we want to make you happy. What is it that you want? How? Help me help you. That's basically what it is.
Where do you think Harbaugh lands? Is it about, is it for him, is it about ego and going and building something like Cleveland, where you can stay within the division and say, stick it to the Ravens? Is it about going to as close to a ready-made situation? Is it, hey, I want to go to as close as a ready-made situation as possible? Ego plays a role in this. Maybe power over the organization and picking the players has something to do with this. Where do you think it goes with Harbaugh?
Well, if I'm John Harbaugh, yeah, I want more power. We just saw him, he got fired because, maybe he didn't get along with his quarterback. Maybe there were some problems inside the building. And obviously, the Ravens organization decided, hey, we're going to lean heavily on our quarterback and not our head coach. So you walk into your next situation, I want more power, right? And that means more power over the GM and being able to pick your own players. I mean, Pete Carroll once told me this when I did a coaching internship with the Seattle Seahawks. Every coach that's hired is a coach that's going to get fired. So you might as well do it your way. And having as much power in the building to influence the coaching staff, what players you bring in or players you kick out of the building, that part is so important. Now, I wouldn't take over Cleveland. I know people were saying, oh, that would be a great way to kind of get revenge. No, it wouldn't. It just gets you fired quicker. So I'm thinking go to a team that has great ownership. They have a decent roster in place, and all you have to do is plug and play. So the team that looks great to me is the Atlanta Falcons, right? They don't have a GM. They hire you first. You hire the GM. So that gives you more power than the GM. Then, oh, by the way, they have talent in the building, and they're in the NFC South, where you could just run roughshod over that division.
Nick Ferguson is hanging out with us. Jason Page, Sam Yarnell is here too. We're talking about the coaching stuff. There's more to get to on the other side. Also some playoff talk. I don't know how we're going to fit it all in. We might have to hold Nick for another segment. We're coming back.
Yes.
We keep the conversation moving. Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety. Sam Yarnell, hanging out with me. I have made an executive decision. We're going to hold you another segment. Kurt Helin's only going to get one segment of basketball today. Got to do it. There's just too much. There's just too much going on.
Yeah, keep those Hoopers at bay.
More Wizards erasure. Jason just doesn't want to talk about how the Wizards are about to pull off a blockbuster with Trae Young. I get it. I understand.
I don't want to talk about it. I can only talk so much Alex Sarr. There's just only so much of that I have to do. So let's keep it on the coaching stuff here in this segment, because we talked about the Harbaugh firing. There's Kevin Stefanski that's out there. There's Raheem Morris that's out there. There's a ton of openings that are out there. And on the Harbaugh thing that we didn't even get into, which I talked about in the big story, which is there's all these teams calling, and apparently there's teams calling that still have coaches that they might be willing to get rid of. Is that Mike McDaniel and Matt LaFleur that are basically, sitting there scratching their heads going, hey, was it my owner or GM that was placing a call to John Harbaugh's agent?
Yeah, I think that's what you concern yourself about if you are those two coaches, because like I said before, you have a well-proven coach in John Harbaugh. That's 18 years. Matt LaFleur doesn't have that many years. Neither does Mike McDaniels. And I'm willing to see or waiting to see what's going to happen with Miami, because it was said that Mike McDaniels was part of or would be part of the process in finding another GM, but Stephen Ross wants to win. And I said this the other day to someone else. When you think about the Miami Dolphins and Stephen Ross, remember the allegations Brian Flores had against the Miami Dolphins organization that, hey, I was being incentivized to probably not play my best football so we can move up the draft board to pick Tua. Well, we know how that worked out, and it proves that Brian Flores, was absolutely correct. But I say all that to say that Stephen Ross wants to win, and he's willing to do anything and everything to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he decides, well, you know what? You got John Harbaugh out there. You know what would happen with our team if we brought in a guy that's going to hold people accountable and he knows how to build culture? So I wouldn't be surprised if Stephen Ross and the Miami Dolphins did that.
Nick, I want to ask you about something, I don't want to call it trivial, but it may be. As a defensive player, your insight is very key. I noticed the analytics have finally come out from the entire season. We're getting the entire season's leaderboards on, who was the most productive receiver based on what route and how many routes were run individually each time throughout the entire NFL season. The wheel route is dying. It really is. It was run 3 times less than the second least run route in the NFL this year, Nick. What do you think goes into that, and why are teams starting to gravitate away from, as a defensive player maybe, wheel routes, and what have defensive players done over the last, 5-10 years to adjust to wheel routes and make them less effective?
Well, it's communication. First, you have to come out and identify the formation and how the offensive team is trying to set you up. And then you have to have the ability to communicate with the other guy in coverage. But, Sam, I'll push back against that just slightly, because teams are finding different ways to run that route. and they may not call it a wheel route. They may call it a rail route. If you watch certain games, you'll see a receiver in a minor split. I watched the Denver Broncos do it against the Houston Texans during the regular season. They took Courtland Sutton and put him inside the numbers, and they offset the running back to the same side. So as a defensive player, you got to say, well, I'm covering a corner, covering with the linebacker. And usually the rule is you only switch with like positions. So DBs can only switch with DBs. But in certain cases, you can switch with a linebacker. And sometimes teams that don't do it, you put that linebacker in the bind, because in the case I'm talking about, Courtland Sutton was covered by Derek Stingley. They ran right at the linebacker, and the linebacker had a choice. It was almost like a basketball pick. Do you run under? You run over. Either way, the offense wins because they get that running back on that rail, and all the quarterback has to do is drop the ball in. So if you're seeing the numbers down on wheel routes, they're probably running them a little different than they ran them in years past.
I did not have that on my scorecard for today.
That was awesome.
I did not have wheel routes being on my bingo card for this conversation today. The Giants, I don't even know how to recover from that. The Giants, I'm very rarely left speechless. The Giants, is that, you talk about the Falcons being the job that Harbaugh would want. Is the Giants' job as highly coveted?
I don't know, man, because one, you're dealing with New York media, and as a person who played there, that can be brutal, and not every coach is ready for that. Two, you're trying to figure out, well, how much power are you going to have, because Joe Shane is still in the building. And with that being said, will you be able to pick your coaching staff? Will you be able to pick the players that you want, or are you picking the players that Joe Shane wants? And then three, what's going on with Jackson Dart? Dart is a very talented player, but he's had some early concussions, which could be problematic moving forward. And then you look at New York. If I'm not mistaken, their cap space for this year is $18 million, right? They have a great defense you could build on, but with all those negatives, do you want to take that job? Because once again, New York, and you being a Giants fan, if you don't win and you don't win fast, you can be out of a job really quick, as Brian Daboll found out, as though the other coaches who came before him found out as well.
Well, Daboll wasn't out fast. I mean, he got a few years. It wasn't like he was fired after 1 year.
Well, after 1 year, he was on the hot seat. And it was every game after that, you're trying to save your job. And selecting Jackson Dart was a way of saving his job. I mean, think about that Thursday night game we saw when the Giants played Philadelphia, and we saw, both Cam Scatterbull and Brian Daboll standing by the blue tent, trying to go in the blue tent to get Jackson Dart out of the blue tent, because he didn't want to see Russell Wilson in the game and then end up being fine himself and the team being fine. So his growth and his path as a coach was tied to Jackson Dart. And once again, what do we see? It's a pattern. The quarterback is more important than the head coach.
Here comes that QB bitterness. Here comes that QB bitterness, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, if it's facts, how's it bitterness?
It's bitterness.
Play out.
Wait, know what? You can sit here and say, a quarterback's not going to win you the game, but he could damn well lose you the game.
He can. And what do we see? And I just told you what happened with the Brian Flores situation in Miami. Flores didn't want Tua, but the GM wanted him, and Stephen Ross wanted him. And guess what? Now the GM is fired, and Brian Flores is laughing like, see, I told you so. Yes. How about that, Jason? Say, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
There's more to talk about with Nick Ferguson. We're coming right back. We got to get into these wild card weekend playoff games next. Welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Sports Wrap, continuing the conversation with the one and only Nick Ferguson, Denver sports radio royalty, former NFL safety. He was pretty good at football, too. Hangs out with us on the program. Let's talk about the playoff games. Wild card weekend. Take your Broncos love and all that and put it to the side for a second here.
Wow.
You can't use the Broncos for the answer to this question.
Okay.
The game that intrigues you most, and why?
It would be the Bills at Jacksonville. I mean, there's legacy implications here, and obviously I'm talking about Josh Allen. If he doesn't win this game and move on to Levi Stadium and win a whole damn thing, I think there's going to be some question marks about Josh Allen. He's going to be mentioned in the stories of guys like Dan Fouts. Very talented, just couldn't get over the top because, once again, his path is so easy. Very easy. You don't have some of the top quarterbacks. And more of the quarterbacks in the AFC, they're very inexperienced. Trevor Lawrence, Liam Cohen. I mean, people who have disrespected this Duval team, and they want some get back. And can Josh Allen, James Cook, Sean McDermott, can they go on the road and do it? I'm not quite sure. But if he can't get it done, I mean, we're going to start hearing some negative things said about one Josh Allen.
Nick, I'm curious because I don't disagree with you, right? And it's a popular notion, right? This is objectively almost Josh Allen's easiest path to the Super Bowl. No Lamar, no Mahomes, no Joe Burrow in the entire playoff picture. But at the same time, right, the narrative of this being Josh Allen's easiest path to the Super Bowl is seemingly paralleled, if not accompanied by the statement of potential fact that this is Josh Allen's least talented team that he's taken to the playoffs. So to me, when it comes to the questions that we'll ask about Josh Allen, don't you think there has to be some grace given to the fact that we've been saying all year this team isn't good, and now all of a sudden they're in the playoffs and we're saying they have to win the whole thing?
No grace given. No, that's not how this works, Sam. Right? Because once again, everyone wants to uplift the quarterback position. Right? And everyone says, well, a quarterback is going to make everyone better. Right? That's the whole idea. So he has no choice. We know he's talented. Even though their wide receiver core is not a bunch of household names, they are quality guys, and they work well with Josh Allen. So even though we can try to downplay it and say, well, this is not his most talented team, well, tell me a team that was more talented in the years past. And I would say there is none, because everything goes with the guy under center. And Josh Allen, we always talk about, well, when the team gets down and you need someone to dig deep for something to happen, Josh Allen throws on his cape and he stands up there and he gives his best Superman impression, and then the game changes. He's going to have to do that now because, once again, what other quarterbacks in the championship right now or in the tournament has more playoff experience on the AFC side than Josh Allen? Right? And I'm not saying it's going to be an easy cakewalk, but at the same time, you have more experience than Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was considered to be a bust until Liam Cohen came and joined him. So if you can't overcome that on the road with you and your minions, then that's going to be a problem, and we're going to call you Dan Fouts.
For me, it's Packers-Bears. That's the game I am most intrigued by.
Packers-Bears.
Oh, God, yes. Absolutely.
Right, because we haven't seen that enough so far this NFL season.
No, I want to say it is. It's Packers-Bears to me, because you have the Matt LaFleur sort of story that's hanging out there about whether or not the team is enamored with him, whether or not they're going to let him go. You have Caleb Williams paired up with Ben Johnson, and we've seen the continued maturation of that pairing as we've gone through the season. And Chicago that's found all these ways to win games. I'm intrigued by Packers-Bears. That's just me. I don't know. Because I think the Rams are going to beat the Panthers. The Niners are in trouble going into Philadelphia. Texans Steelers I think is fascinating, obviously, for the Aaron Rodgers component, and I've always felt like the Texans were the most dangerous team in this postseason because of the way that defense can travel. I think that game's just going to be a slugfest for 4 quarters. Maybe Texans Steelers would be the next most compelling, and then Chargers Patriots after that. It's just what I'm thinking.
Well, I mean, with all you just said, why would you even toss out Bears Packers?
What do you mean?
Like Sam said, we've seen that movie before. It's like, you know what?
Not in the playoffs. They've only played in the playoffs a couple of times.
But that's like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, right? We know there's going to be a twist at the end, right? It's a Scooby-Doo. It's Old Man Winters from the store down the street. He pulls off his mask. We already know what that's going to look like, JP.
Nick is in rare form today, man.
Wait, The game between the Texans and the Steelers, that's another intriguing game. Could this be Aaron Rodgers' last game? Could this be Mike Tomlin's last game? Will the Texans offense actually show up? That's more intriguing than the damn Bears and the Green Bay Packers. That's all I'm saying.
Man, you got a lot of vitriol today.
Nick, we've got 45 seconds, and I got to fit in this question. Jason and I are going to talk about the transfer portal later. You obviously played college football. If you were playing college football in this year, with all these guys flying around from school to school every offseason, how many times would you have entered the transfer portal?
Probably once. That's about it. I don't get this whole idea. What was this kid who signed a deal with the school and then a couple of days later say, you know what?
Devon Williams. Yeah.
Hey, listen, they need to put in some rules and say, look, a contract is a contract. Once you put your name on the paper, we got you for a guaranteed 1 or 2 years. But I'm not with this jumping ship and just leaving just to collect the bag.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that in Odds and Ends a little later on in the show. I'm out of time. I wish I wasn't, because I'd like to just scream at Nick today, but apparently we're out of time.
It's time to go. Da, 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 da.
We're coming back. All right, Nick Ferguson went long today because he had a lot to say today. So we're hanging out with our man Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, as we do every Wednesday on the show. We're going to do one segment for the TV version of the show, and then we will do another segment that you're going to have to go watch on our YouTube channel, the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, because we want you to watch our YouTube channel, which is fantastic. Kurt Helin of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Trae Young on the move. How long is it going to take for this deal to get done?
I'm probably up pretty close to the deadline because they're going to look for something better than Washington, which is really the only suitor of note right now. Look, he wants to go somewhere that's going to get him paid next year, a team that's kind of willing to give him the ball and give him the reins, and that's a team that's ownership is searching for relevance. They've made the playoffs once in the last 7 years. That's about to be once in the last 8 years. So I don't see... Look, I did a whole story about this at NBC Sports yesterday. I don't see another option that's valid.
And that was the problem. And I said this, to Sam. I said when this whole thing came up, I said to Sam yesterday, I'm like, there's so many reasons that this doesn't work, that they could all say they're trying to work out a trade deal. I just don't think there's that many dance partners for them. Look, that's exactly what I said.
Look, Mark Stein reported this today. I've heard multiple teams, like they tried to talk to Brooklyn, who's theoretically rebuilding. Brooklyn wanted nothing to do with it. They tried to talk to Minnesota, who needs a point guard. Minnesota did not want to play along. You know, here's one other one. Last summer, they tried to talk to the Kings about a Trae Young for Zach LaVine swap with the Hawks to bring him in. Sacramento's like, nah, we don't want it. Like, you are having trouble finding the teams. You need a team that's seeking relevance, that would be willing to make this move, that would be willing to say that. And Washington is apparently that team. I thought somebody like New Orleans might be, but apparently New Orleans isn't in the mix. I don't know. Like, I don't know where else you're going to pay somebody almost $50 million a year to dominate the ball and not play defense. It doesn't fly in the apron era.
Everything I said. Go ahead, Sam.
Kurt, from a Hawks perspective, though, I get this didn't work out, but where does this franchise go? They're in the last play-in spot. They've got this entire saga that's going on this year with everyone realizing that Zachary Rizachet is actually not very good at basketball. And now the franchise player who the entire city has banded around for the last half decade, it feels like, is going to seemingly just leave to the worst team allegedly in the NBA for practically nothing. For CJ McCollum, who's not going to make this team any better. Where do the Hawks go from here?
Well, first off, they've just been better without him. I think they're 13-9. I forget the exact number. Like they're actually winning without him. They focus around Jalen Johnson and some of their young guys and start to pivot. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has had a most improved breakout kind of season there, and his offense is caught up with, look, he's still playing elite defense. His offense is caught up. Like, there's pieces there to pivot to. You're getting McCollum to watch his salary go away, right? But you try to get a pick in there. You try to find some ways to start pivoting towards whatever the future is, because you've got a nice young core. You may not have the alpha, the number one, but you start to pivot towards something that's a little more sustainable, because this simply isn't working, and you use Porzingis' salary to get off of it. It's not ideal, but I'm also going to stick up for Zachary Risacher, who is okay. Like, he's not. The problem is he's the number one pick, and like, so it comes with this burden. If he were the number 8 pick, we'd be like, yeah, he's fine. He did not take a step forward like they've really needed this season, but you know, I don't think he's bad. I think he's just going to end up being a rotation player in what we kind of knew was a down draft.
Give me a thought here on the Thunder, who I have to get to. 6-6 in their last 12. They get their doors blown off by the lowly Hornets. What's going on here? I mean, they talk about, well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander said, oh, we're not as good as everybody thinks we are, and then they go into this bit of a tailspin. Is there a correlation here? What is wrong with the Oklahoma City Thunder right now? Who broke them?
Who broke them?
Did San Antonio break them?
And, I mean, San Antonio's a matchup problem for them. That's like a playoff issue. That's one of those matchups that's just not good for them. But what's really gone wrong is they stopped shooting the ball well. Like, this was a team that was shooting over 40% from three as a team for that first 20. I think 43% for those first 25 games. They were just knocking down everything from everywhere, and they've gone cold as a team. The defense has still been good, but they're not generating the shots. They're not just knocking stuff down like they used to. And it was probably, look, a little bit of a regression to the mean, right? Like, they were shooting too well. Now they're shooting too poor. They're probably living somewhere in the middle of that. But they may not be as dominant, or at least during the regular season, as we thought. I'm not personally, dude, it's an 82-game season. It's a marathon, and they've hit a little bit of a rough patch. But
we were talking about them potentially winning more games in the regular season than any team in NBA history. It's a little bit more than a rough patch.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've struggled a little, but I still think that they are the most complete team come the playoffs. They are the bar. At the end of the day, that is still the team you've got to beat if you're going to win a title. That said, if they're shooting like this, they're beatable.
Does it?
Kurt,
yeah, go ahead, Sam. We only got like 30 seconds.
Real quick, last 40 seconds we have. The Celtics, we didn't expect them to be this good. Obviously, this means Jason Tatum's probably going to come back sooner than he should. But Jaylen Brown, averaging 30 a night, carrying this team to the current 2 seed in the East. What has that done for the thought around Jason Tatum in Boston?
Real quick, he blends back in. The two of them find a seamless core, but you get, look, when they won the title, who was the Finals MVP? Who was the Eastern Conference MVP? It was Jaylen Brown. He's capable of this. He's doing it now.
Yeah, he certainly is. Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Check out his work there. We're going to hold him, and it's going to be on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, because there's a lot more to get to. We'll do that with him. Odds and ends for those of you watching on the TV side coming up next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Wednesday. Tomorrow on the show, we've got a whole bunch of stuff to preview. Wild card weekend, we got college football playoff games. We'll do all that on the show tomorrow. Couple of reminders before we go. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. Available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show Monday through Friday, 45 minutes. It is fantastic, commercial-free. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to do like an NFL red zone thing here and lie to people. No, the podcast, the audio podcast, does have a couple of commercials in it, and that's it. But make sure to go and check it out. It's fantastic. 45 minutes available for you Monday through Friday. Today's is going to be a little longer because we had some extra segments that we're going to throw into it. Also, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. This is the place for all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday version of the show available on our YouTube channel. 45 minutes, and that is commercial free. We also have extra segments. We have bonus content from the show available there, and Sports Wrap shorts. which we have put a lot of work into and continue to put a lot of work into. SportsWrap shorts available on our YouTube channel, SportsWrap with Jason Page. When news breaks, we are right there on SportsWrap shorts to bring it to you. John Harbaugh being the perfect example yesterday when we got into that. So make sure to check out the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. SportsWrap shorts also available on our TikTok, SportsWrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, you guessed it, SportsWrap Jason Page. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Damon Williams agreed on re-signing. Still sounds weird to say in college sports. Re-signing with Washington football. He was going to come back, play quarterback for them next season. Then he decided, you know what? I've re-signed, but I've decided I still want to enter the transfer portal. Now Washington says they're going to try and remedy this situation. They're going to go after it every way they need to enforce the contract he signed to return to the team for next season. I know a lot of people are going to say, good for them. They should go after him. Here's the problem. Damon Williams isn't doing anything wrong because there are no rules in college football. I'm not blaming him for taking advantage of the system the way that it's currently comprised. He signed a contract and then decided he wanted to go into the transfer portal. I'm not saying he's right, but I'm not going to say he's wrong when there are no rules in college football. Now, maybe the one good thing that comes out of this is that it goes to and gets elevated to a point where rules are made for signing a contract and then deciding to go into the transfer portal. But I'm not going after Damon Williams in this instance, Sam.
Yeah, let me. I'll tell you how this thing is going to work out, right?
Uh-huh.
University of Washington ain't going to lose. They're not going to do that. I'll tell you one thing they're not going to do, and that's lose. You're talking about an individual here going up against a multi-billion-dollar publicly funded university. They're not gonna lose. I'm sorry, they're not. That's not how these things work. I've been around long. Haven't been around that long. Been around long enough to know that much. When you go up against the man doesn't usually let you win. This is very, very, very stupid from Damon Williams. What has come out in the time since this whole saga has begun is his contract, this kid, was very unique in that it was very much set up in a revenue sharing way rather than a payment way. So now he's breached it. And again, this is to your point about college football not having any rules, right? This is the problem because now you've got a university, right? An institution that is contractually taking advantage of the kid. So yeah, I am going to blame the kid. You didn't look over the contract strongly enough, right? You didn't have the right people vet what you were about to put your name on with pen, right? You don't do that. You have to understand, right? If you want to play in this game as an athlete and you want to be a paid player of a sport, you got to understand there are two sides to every game, right? You need to be smart and thorough when it comes to contracts and when it comes to locking up your money, and he wasn't, and now he, along with, I'm guessing, hundreds if not thousands of other athletes across the country, are about to feel the wrath of a state-funded institution.
Ed O'Bannon, by the way, on line one says he fought the man and won. Just wanted to throw that out there. The Las Vegas A's Athletics, the Vegas Athletics, what the hell their name is going to be, we don't know. The most A's story imaginable today, the Las Vegas A's, soon to be, finding out they can't be the Las Vegas Athletics or the Vegas Athletics. At least not yet. I think eventually this gets done and they do become the Las Vegas A's, but trademark issues, and Sam, the most A's story you can possibly have.
And it gets even more A's than this. Ready, Jason? Not only are they not able to mark the trademark, the person who has reserved the trademark, if you'll remember from stories that Jason and I talked about when the A's left Oakland, it's the Last Dive Bar. Yes, it's that group of Oakland Athletics fans that never wanted them to leave Oakland, that hated John Fisher, that still do hate John Fisher. This is poetic, Jason.
Yes.
Could not have worked out any better.
It would be great if the Last Dive Bar was literally the reason they don't get the name they want. It would be fantastic. We got to go. Thanks to Nick Ferguson. Thanks to Kurt Helin. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. We'll see you all back here on Thursday for another edition of Sports Wrap.